My name is Marina Lowell, and the morning my flight touched down in Charleston, South Carolina, I expected nothing more dramatic than catching up on lost sleep. Instead, the moment I switched my phone off airplane mode, a notification flashed across the screen, short, sharp, and cruel enough to knock the breath out of me. Close the deal on the beach house. 8 million. Thanks for staying gone. The message was from my younger sister, Clara. That house wasn't just a building. It sat on the dunes of Sullivan's Island, overlooking the Atlantic, the only place that ever felt like home during all my years traveling as a nurse. And while I'd been working a contract in Alaska for the last 6 months, I'd trusted Clara to look after it. Clearly, trust had been misplaced. I didn't bother picking up my luggage. I walked straight out of the terminal, rented the first car they handed me, and drove toward Sullivan's Island with my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my palms. I kept rereading the text, hoping I'd misinterpreted something, but the words stayed the same, cold and triumphant. By the time I turned onto the gravel road leading to the property, dread had already settled low in my spine. When the house came into view, it didn't even look like ours. Trucks lined the driveway. The porch railings had been torn off. Workers were hauling out the stone fireplace my grandfather built with his own hands. I stepped out of the car and slammed the door harder than I meant to. "Excuse me," I yelled, walking toward the noise. "What are you doing to this house?" Most of the crew ignored me. One man glanced up, shrugged, and went back to prying loose floorboards. To them, I was just another irritated neighbor. A woman in a tailored suit finally approached. Clipboard tucked to her side. Polished smile. Detached confidence. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Yes," I said, lifting my chin. "You can stop tearing apart my family's home. This property belongs to us." Her smile thinned. "This property was purchased 8 weeks ago. We have a recorded deed, survey documents, and a completed sales contract. And you are?" "I'm the owner," I said without hesitating. "Marina Lowell." "That day." And quote, day. For the first time, something flickered in her expression, uncertainty, maybe even concern. She stepped back slightly and motioned me toward the porch, away from the workers. "That's unexpected," she murmured. "Why don't we talk for a moment? I'd rather avoid a scene." The word scene nearly made me laugh. If anyone deserved to make a scene, it was me. As she flipped through her paperwork, her brow knit tighter and tighter, my stomach twisted. I knew then, without seeing a single document, exactly what Clara had done. She hadn't simply sold the house. She had forged my signature. My sister, the girl I once protected from bullies and heartbreak, had crossed a line I never thought she'd approach, let alone leap across. And she was about to learn exactly what that meant. Because those same forged documents were the reason the sheriff would later look her in the eye and say, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for fraud." I play. The woman closed the folder slowly. "Miss Lowell, we need to call the county office. Something here isn't adding up." No. Something added up perfectly. My sister's greed. And the text that started it all. "My husband and I wired $8 million for this property. We were told the sale was time-sensitive," the woman said quietly, her voice lowering as if she already suspected something was off. "We were informed the co-owner had signed everything from Alaska, that she couldn't return to South Carolina in time to finalize the documents." My stomach tightened. "Co-owner?" She continued carefully. "Your sister, Clara, assured us you had agreed to everything. She said you were too busy on medical deployments to handle the paperwork yourself." My throat went dry. Hearing a stranger recite my life, my job, my commitments, my distance as if Clara had converted my biography into a sales script, it scraped something deep inside me. She opened her leather folder again, just enough for the top of the page to show. There, in bold type, sat my full legal name, Marina Elise Lowell Seller, and beneath it, in steady, confident strokes, was my signature. Only I had never signed anything. A cold pulse thudded at the base of my neck. If my forged signature had made its way onto a deed, then it had passed through county offices, attorneys, banks, every institution that was supposed to prevent something like this. And if all of them believed I had willingly sold my grandfather's legacy, then Clara's text wasn't just arrogance. It was criminal. I breathed in deeply, forcing my voice not to shake. "If that signature is supposed to be mine," I said evenly, "someone has made a very serious mistake. And I think both of us are about to learn who." I stepped away before I let fury get the better of me. The construction noise behind me faded as I walked back to my car. My hands still trembled when I gripped the steering wheel. I headed straight for the county courthouse, the image of that signature burning behind my eyes. Inside the records office, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while a clerk tapped my name into her computer. "You're looking for the deed transfer on Sullivan's Island?" she asked. I nodded. "Anything filed within the last year. And I need certified copies." End quote. She printed a thin stack of papers and handed them over without a hint of awareness that she had just passed me the equivalent of a detonator. I stepped aside and opened the first page. Purchase and sale agreement. Seller: Marina Lowell. Buyer: Atlantic Heritage Development, LLC. My chest tightened as I scanned the bottom of the contract. The signature looked exactly like mine, down to the faint curve in the M, the slight rise in the L, the practiced flow I'd used on nursing licenses, passports, tax forms. It was perfect. Too perfect, because I had never laid eyes on this contract before. A slow heat rose in my chest, not embarrassment, not confusion, but the unmistakable realization that someone had committed a detailed, deliberate forgery. I exhaled once, long and controlled. "This," I whispered, "is fraud. It's damned." And it was about to unravel everything Clara thought she'd gotten away with. "This is a forgery," I whispered. The clerk paused, fingers hovering above the keyboard. "Ma'am?" I cleared my throat, forcing steadiness back into my voice. "This signature, it isn't mine." Her expression shifted from routine politeness to careful neutrality. "The documents were notarized," she said. "They include a witness and a valid seal. If you believe there's fraud, you may want to contact law enforcement or an attorney." I kept reading, scanning the legal dense text, until one line froze me in place. Witness: Liam Carter. For a moment, the letters swam on the page. Liam Carter, the man I once planned to marry, the man who told me he'd wait while I took contracts abroad, who said he respected my purpose and believed in my work. The man who, in the quiet spaces between flights and deployments, promised he'd always stand on my side. And here his name sat beneath my forged signature, not beside it, beneath it, as if he had anchored the lie in place. I let my fingertip drift over the ink, tracing the familiar curve of his writing. It didn't just confirm Clara's betrayal, it proved she had help. Willing help. My movements sharpened. I pulled out my phone and photographed every page, framing each document with the precision of a surgeon documenting evidence. This wasn't just a family dispute, it was conspiracy, fraud, a chain of actions that carried criminal weight. Stepping outside, the humid South Carolina air clung to my skin, thicker somehow under the weight of what I now carried. One truth cut through everything: Clara hadn't done this alone. And when I confronted her, I'd be holding her accomplices' names in my hands. I didn't trust myself to drive straight back to the beach house. Not yet. I needed clarity, witnesses, people who knew Clara, who'd seen the way she shifted personalities depending on what she wanted. So I texted my oldest friend. I'm back. It's about the house. I need you. Emily, come over, now." Emily opened the door before I even reached the porch. Her face tightened as she took in mine. "You look like you've been awake for days," she whispered, pulling me into a quick embrace. "What happened?" I spread the courthouse copies across her dining table, each page a piece of the betrayal. "Clara sold the beach house," I said quietly. "Without me. And she forged my signature to do it." Emily leaned over the papers, her brow furrowing deeper with every line she read. "Marina, are you sure you didn't sign something? A remote authorization? A temporary power of attorney?" I met her eyes with a controlled breath. "Emily, I'm a nurse. I sign legal documents all the time. I know exactly what I authorize. I would never, ever sign away that house." "Okay," she murmured. "Okay. Then this is—" The front door swung open. Clara stepped inside Emily's home like she owned the air in it. Her eyes swept the table, then me. "Well," she said lightly, "I guess you've seen the paperwork." Clara's sunglasses sat perched on her head, her phone still in her hand as she stepped deeper into Emily's living room. "You texted me. Something urgent," she said to Emily, then her gaze collided with mine. Her smile faltered. "Well, look who finally decided to show up." I didn't bother responding. Instead, I slid one of the contracts across the table toward her. "Explain this." End quote. For a single heartbeat, her expression cracked, panic flickering so fast most people would have missed it, but I didn't. Then she tossed her hair back and laughed. "Oh my God, Marina, seriously? I thought someone died. You're being dramatic." She tapped the papers with her manicured nail. "We sold the house. It was falling apart, and you're never here." "We?" I repeated quietly. "Or did you mean you sold it? Using my name?" "You signed the digital forms," she insisted, arms crossing. "Remember those documents I emailed you months ago? You told me to handle them." "Those were tax forms," I said, my voice turning cold. "Not the sale of an $8 million property." Clara's tone sharpened. "I did what was best for us. We're drowning in debt, student loans, medical bills, repairs." "Don't rewrite this as charity," I cut in. "Where is the money, Clara?" She lifted her chin. "It's managed, invested. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand." Axed. I think. Emily cleared her throat and pointed at the witness section of the document. "If this was all so legitimate, why is there a notarized signature from someone who wasn't there? And who is Liam Carter?" Clara's eyes darted downward. She said nothing. My pulse thudded in my ears as I answered. "He's my ex-fiancé." The words felt like stones. The man who once promised to build a life with me, and apparently the man who watched my sister forge my name. Emily's face drained of color. Clara looked from her to me, her earlier arrogance slipping as reality cornered her. I gathered the documents into a neat stack, each movement steady, deliberate. "You didn't just cross a line, Clara. You committed a felony. And if you think I'm going to walk away because we share DNA?" I slid the folder into my bag. "You have no idea who you just picked a fight with." 2 days later, we met at the beach house, Clara's idea. "Let's talk where it all started," she'd texted, as if this were a sentimental disagreement instead of a criminal investigation. I brought Emily with me, and by then I had already sent the documents to both my attorney and the sheriff's office, just in case Clara tried something again. The construction crew had paused work pending ownership clarification, a polite way of saying the new buyers wanted nothing to do with a potential fraud case. When we pulled into the gravel drive, the house looked eerily frozen mid-demolition, planks half removed, tools scattered, plastic sheeting fluttering in the wind. Clara stood near the porch, arms wrapped around herself, trying to project calm. But her eyes told a different story. A story that was about to unravel one lie at a time. The beach house looked wounded, exposed beams where walls once stood, half-finished repairs, plastic sheeting snapping in the ocean wind. It felt like my grandfather's ghost could have stepped out at any moment and demanded to know what we had allowed to happen. Clara waited in what used to be the living room, arms folded, foot tapping against the dusty subfloor. She looked exhausted, no makeup, hollow eyes, an unsteady bitterness clinging to her posture. The polished, self-assured veneer she always wore was gone. After a long moment, she sighed. "Can we be adults about this?" "Adults don't forge signatures," I replied. "Adults don't steal property." She rolled her eyes, but she still wouldn't meet mine. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Everything was under control until you decided to make this a federal investigation." Emily let out a low breath. "You committed one," she muttered. I set the folder on the exposed counterframe between us. "Here's what I know. You sold the house for $8 million. You used my name and a forged signature. You had Liam sign as a witness. You misled the buyers. So, I'll ask again, where's the money?" Clara's mask finally cracked. Her jaw tightened, and she stared past me at the unfinished wall. "Gone," she whispered. My stomach twisted. "What do you mean, gone?" "Debts?" she snapped, her voice rising. "Do you have any idea what it's like drowning in credit cards, in a failing business, in people calling day and night? I paid everything off. Some of it was mine, some of it was Liam's. Some of it belonged to people you don't want to owe. 18 fires." She laughed sharp, humorless. 8 million disappears fast when you're plugging every hole in a sinking ship. You stole our family home, I said quietly, to fix disasters you never told me about? You could have come to me. I would have helped you find solutions. I always have. Clara's eyes flashed. You're always flying off to disaster zones overseas, saving strangers, fixing everyone else's emergencies. But I'm your sister. I was right here, drowning, and you never saw it. It is, man. Her words landed, heavy and painful. But pain didn't erase fraud. It didn't erase forged signatures or stolen property. You didn't ask, I said softly. You helped yourself to something that wasn't yours. Clara's shoulders slumped as if the fight had drained out of her. If you report this, she whispered, I lose everything. My job, my license, my reputation. I could go to prison. You should have thought about that before you signed my name. Goad. Emily shifted beside me, a warning glance passing through her expression just as footsteps crunched outside. A shadow moved across the torn open doorway. Clara's eyes widened before she even turned. Because this time, it wasn't a construction worker. It was a sheriff's deputy. He stepped inside, hand resting calmly on his belt. Afternoon, he said. We received documentation regarding a possible fraudulent transfer of property. I need to speak with Clara Lowell. Clara froze. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the ground shift back beneath my feet. Clara, Emily said softly. She already has proof. This isn't something that disappears because you're scared now. Clara stepped closer, her voice collapsing into a frantic whisper. Marina, please. We can fix this. I'll pay you back. I'll sign whatever you want. Just don't bring the law into this. When stage share that is so. Our crosity prisoned thumbs. Her eyes searched mine desperately, and for a moment memories flickered. Late nights playing cards in this house, summers on the dock, secrets shared under blankets when storms shook the windows. But then I remembered her text. Thanks for staying gone. Not an apology. Not a warning. A taunt. She had counted on me being far enough away to stay powerless. It's already beyond us, I said quietly. The buyers, the bank, the county, everyone was lied to. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's fraud. Outside, a car door slammed. Emily's gaze darted toward the porch. Marina, I think your decision just arrived. Heavy footsteps crossed the unfinished deck. A uniformed deputy stepped through the open frame of the doorway, followed by a man in plain clothes with a badge clipped to his belt. The air shifted immediately tense, charged, unmistakably official. Miss Lowell? The man asked, turning to me. I'm Sheriff Daniels. You filed a fraud report regarding this property? Clara's head snapped toward me. You already called the sheriff? I told you this was bigger than us, I answered, steady. Yes, Sheriff. I'm Marina Lowell. He nodded and held up a tablet. We reviewed the documents you sent, along with the original filings from the recorder's office. We've also spoken with the buyers, the notary, and Mr. Liam Carter. At Liam's name, Clara physically flinched. And? She demanded, her voice tight. Sheriff Daniels turned his attention to her. You're Miss Clara Lowell? She tried to straighten her posture, but the tremble in her chin betrayed her. I am. And this is all just one big misunderstanding. Families handle things informally all the time. This goes beyond informal, ma'am, the sheriff replied calmly. We have a notarized deed and sales contract signed under your sister's name. The notary states she never met Miss Lowell in person and relied solely on identification and assurances you provided. Clara's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Furthermore, he continued, Mr. Carter has admitted that you told him your sister had authorized the sale. He also stated he never actually witnessed her sign anything. Clara's face drained. He said that? He did, the sheriff confirmed. And financial records show that the majority of the 8 million was transferred into accounts controlled solely by you, then rapidly dispersed to various creditors, loan agencies, and multiple casinos. That spending pattern is consistent with financial fraud, not a legitimate transaction. Clara's gaze snapped to mine, panicked, pleading, the bravado finally gone. Marina, please. For the first time, she understood this was no longer a fight she could talk her way out of. It was the moment the truth finally outweighed her lies. "Marina, say something," Clara begged, her voice cracking. "Tell them you don't want to press charges. Tell them this is just a misunderstanding between sisters." My heart tightened, but my voice didn't waver. "I already told the truth. I never agreed to sell this house. I never signed anything. You took my name, my inheritance, and used them like a credit card. I can't erase this for you. And Sain Sharjan." Sheriff Daniels exhaled slowly, as if preparing himself for the words that had been circling this moment since I first read her text at the airport. "Miss Lowell," he said, his tone steady, authoritative. "Based on the evidence we've reviewed, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and theft by deception. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back." "No," Clara stumbled backward. You can't do this. She just got home, she doesn't understand anything. The real owner just arrived." "The real owner," the sheriff replied calmly, nodding toward me, "is the one whose signature was forged. And the paperwork shows you sold a house that wasn't yours to sell." The deputy stepped forward and gently but firmly took her wrists. The click of the handcuffs echoed through the gutted living room. Clara's eyes flooded, not the dramatic, manipulative tears I'd seen her use on creditors and boyfriends, but something rawer. "Marina, please," she whispered. "We're sisters." I swallowed hard. "We were," I said softly, "before you sold me out for $8 million and a mountain of hidden debts." They led her past the half-torn walls, through the doorway where we'd once lined up shells after summer storms. I watched from inside as the Miranda rights blended with the rustle of wind off the beach. Something inside me, twisted tight for weeks, finally began to loosen. The house was still a disaster. My family was fractured. But for the first time since her text, I felt the world tilting back toward truth. And Clara, she was finally facing something she couldn't charm, cry, or sign her way out of. 6 months can stretch into a lifetime when your world has been turned upside down. In half a year, the legal chaos around the beach house shifted from wildfire to final judgment. The buyers sued to unwind the sale, and the court, after reviewing the forged deed, the financial trail, and Liam Carter's statement, voided the transfer entirely. I regained legal ownership. The Washingtons were refunded through title insurance and the bank. My attorney pressed for damages, and the judge agreed. Clara owed me restitution. Of course, she didn't have a penny left. The $8 million she'd stolen had dissolved into gambling losses, Liam's unpaid debts, predatory lenders, and people she should never have been involved with. Her accounts were empty, her credit obliterated, her professional license was suspended pending formal review. And for the first time in my life, I saw my sister not as a shadow I was responsible for, but as the architect of her own ruin. The plea agreement kept Clara out of a long prison sentence, but it didn't spare her from consequences. She now carried a felony record, strict probation, mandatory counseling, and restitution payments she would likely be making for the rest of her life. While her legal battles played out, my focus shifted back to the house, the one piece of my grandfather's legacy I could still save. Using a modest settlement from a malpractice incident overseas, a memory I didn't cherish, but one that belonged to me, I repaired the roof, rebuilt the deck, and restored the faded blue shutters my grandmother adored. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like the scene of a crime. It began to feel like a promise I had finally kept. By late summer, lanterns glowed along the new railing, casting warm circles of light across the sand. Laughter floated from the back patio, where my friends and colleagues from the hospital gathered around tables layered with food. Music drifted through the open windows. Inside, a white dress hung on the closet door. After everything, after betrayal, forged signatures, and courts full of paperwork, I'd found someone who loved me without needing anything from me. Someone who cared about the woman, not the legacy tied to my name. Someone whose signature I wanted next to mine on a wedding invitation. As the evening buzzed around me, I stepped toward the front gate to steal a moment of quiet. That's when I saw her. Clara stood on the other side of the fence, thinner than I remembered, wearing a plain cotton dress instead of her usual carefully crafted designer armor. No jewelry, no performance. Just tired eyes and an ankle monitor barely hidden beneath cropped pants. She didn't try to push open the gate. Her plea deal included a no-contact order that kept her at a distance unless I chose otherwise. "You look different," she said softly. "So do you," I replied. For a moment, we simply stood there, separated by iron bars and everything that had broken between us. Behind me, someone called my name, followed by laughter when an old childhood song came on. Life had moved forward without her. Mine certainly had. "I heard about the rest of your sentence," I said. "How's community service?" She let out a dry, humorless huff. "Picking up trash on roads I used to speed down in my old convertible?" Very poetic. We almost smiled. Almost. Then, her earlier text drifted back into my mind. "Thanks for staying gone." A message that once felt like a knife. "Why are you here, Clara?" I asked. "To remind you that you still exist? The courts already did that." She swallowed hard. "I wanted to see the house, one last time, before they transfer me to another program." Her voice went thin. "And I wanted to say, I'm sorry." The words trembled between us, fragile and far too late. "Sorry doesn't give me back the months I spent cleaning up the mess you made," I said quietly. "And it doesn't change the fact that when you had a choice between asking for help and forging my name, you chose the one that paid faster." Her eyes glistened in the dim light. "I know," she whispered. "I think about it every day. I see your signature in my dreams. I hear the sheriff saying, 'Ma'am, you're under arrest for fraud.' I replay that text over and over and wish I could take it back." I looked past her, out toward the dark stretch of ocean beyond the dunes. The surface was still, quiet, nothing like the chaos of the past months. "You didn't just steal money," I said softly. "You stole our grandparents' trust. You stole years of peace. You turned the place we loved into evidence." I would. "And now?" she asked, barely audible. "What is it now?" I glanced back at the house, at the glowing windows, the music, the silhouettes of people who had chosen to stand with me, not above me or behind me. People who saw me, valued me, stayed by choice rather than convenience. "Now it's mine," I said. "Legally, emotionally, completely. You made sure of that when you tried to cut me out." Clara nodded slowly, as if absorbing a verdict no judge needed to deliver. "Do you hate me?" The question was small, almost childlike, a fragile echo of the sister I once knew. I let the silence stretch. I owed her honesty, not comfort. "No," I said finally. "Hating you would mean you still get space in my head. I'm done letting you own anything of mine." Her shoulders shook. She wiped at her cheeks with the back of her hand. "Can I ever come in again? Someday?" I looked at the gate between us, at the house behind me, at the memories that haunted the walls and the future I was finally allowing myself to build. "That depends on who you decide to be when all this is over," I said. "Right now, the answer is no." A single tear slid down her face. She didn't argue, didn't beg. She simply nodded, accepting the refusal like another part of her sentence, one even the courts couldn't write. She turned away. The porch lights behind me brightened, spilling a warm golden glow across the sand inside the fence, but stopping short of where she stood. Her shadow stretched long and thin as she walked away from the house she'd tried to sell out from under me, hands empty, future uncertain, no lies left to lean on. I watched her until the darkness swallowed the last trace of her. Then I closed the gate firmly, finally, and turned toward the laughter swelling inside the house. The life waiting for me didn't need to be rebuilt. It needed to be lived. I stepped back into the light, into the music, into the warmth of people who didn't need to forge my name to stay in my world. And in that moment, I understood something the court couldn't put on paper. Clara's punishment wasn't just the record, the restitution, or the probation. It was standing outside the one place she thought she could steal and realizing it would never be hers again. If you've stayed with me through this journey, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Your support reminds me that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I learned that protecting your peace sometimes means closing doors, even on people you love. Don't ignore red flags, don't shrink to keep the peace, and never let guilt convince you to accept less than honesty. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts, share your strength, and remind others that boundaries aren't betrayal, they're survival.